It takes me a minute to finish getting everything set up and then find the feed on my Facebook page so I can watch there for comments. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, everybody, I want everybody to be really quiet, okay? And on the count of 3, I want you to scream happy birthday as loud as you can, okay?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Happy
Thank you very, very much.
Hey, old man.
Matthew,
Nothing changes. Nothing changes when you turn 40. I can tell you that.
Oh, you become more ornery, I heard.
Who said that? Who's Henri?
No, when you turn 40, that's when you start to lose your vision.
Philippe's brother.
And you have more gas.
Let's hope not for that second one.
Anyway, let's talk about Airtable. Let's get into this. All right, back to my screen. So this was actually inspired by a project I recently did for a client. And for those of you who are, kind of interested in learning how to become that quote unquote more strategic advisor, the Airtable is a great tool to learn, such that when you learn it, you can turn around and use it to provide consulting services to clients. I got hired by a client to create a really cool project, which I just turned over to him yesterday, actually. We did a Zoom, and I like how Airtable makes it really easy. He was, I had him set up his own Airtable account and share his workspace to me. It was so easy for me to move the template of the project I had built over into his workspace, so that, in other words, it's easy to transfer ownership of something in Airtable from one account to another. And so what we're gonna show you today is sort of inspired by it. It's not really the same thing, but like I said, it's inspired by it. It's going to follow suit with a lot of the things that I did do for him, right? And I think this is timely in terms of, thinking about creating goals, right? So, for example, in 97 and up, we have, and let me just get my chat up here so I can keep an eye on that. And look at our participants panel up here. It's timely, obviously, because we're getting into the end of the year and we're starting to think about next year and what our goals are. And, granted, you can sort of set or reset your goals anytime. It doesn't have to be this time of year. But again, this is obviously a time of year that lots of people do it. So in 97 and up, we have a whole exercise, in fact, that we're going to be revisiting soon because again, end of the year, that kind of breaks your life down into 6 major areas in terms of things you'd want to track or manage. And it goes kind of in order. It goes body, mind, spirit. I need a few more lines here. Time, people, and money. If you think about it, anything you might be looking to do or track in your life can be grouped into one of these major areas, right? You think of your body, the time you spend taking care of your physical health, right? Like going to the gym, right? And other things, going for walks, what have you. Going to the doctor regularly, whatever it takes. Mind, the time you spend learning and feeding your mind and sort of growing that way. Spirit can go a lot of different ways, especially, if you're a religious person or whatever, but it doesn't have to be religious. For me, the spiritual part is as simple as just having a practice of meditating once or twice a day to quiet the mind. I know for somebody like me, that becomes very important because my mind can be very noisy throughout the day on any given day. So for me, it's paramount. It's of paramount importance to sort of get practiced at quieting the mind. And it really helps me kind of organize my thoughts and then prioritize like all the things that might be running through my mind and what do I need to do and how do I know what to do first. It really, really helps with that part of things. The time we spend organizing our time. How do I want to spend my time, right? Doing things like what we're going to lay out for you here today. People, the time we spend with the people that are important to us. That can be both in our personal lives and, of course, friends, people that we love to spend time with, right? It doesn't matter what part of life we know those friends from. It just matters that we, devote a certain amount and place a certain amount of importance on being conscious of whom I want to spend my time with, right? And then, of course, money. Notice that's last, but the time we spend making a living, right? And the theory, especially of the order of these things, is, you want to be of sound body and mind, and then you'll be in a better place to treat your spirit, right? And then time and people will be more easily managed when the first three are sort of in check, so to speak. And the other theory is if these five are kind of being taken care of, this part generally has a way of taking care of itself, right? And I've experienced that directly in my own personal life. So so that's how we break it down. And so when I'm talking about setting goals, I like to think of setting goals in, let's say, each of these areas, right? And so notice what I've done. I've got an Airtable base. I've pretty much started from a blank slate here. In the first table, I always do this. This is kind of my trademark for whenever I'm building something in Airtable for myself or anyone. The first tab I always call notes, and it's literally just that. I make notes about design and development of that Airtable database and so on and so forth, right? And so the next thing we want to kind of build out is I'm going to call this, we're going to create an empty table, and I'm going to call this the goal analysis. Okay, and this is where we kind of set what are the sort of high-level goals that we want to set for ourselves, right? So in Airtable, for those of you who aren't real familiar with Airtable, and I do have an affiliate link with Airtable, they credit me $10 each anytime somebody signs up for Airtable. So I'll give you that link. Please use that if you haven't already got an Airtable account. I would appreciate it because obviously it helps me. So we want to kind of define what our goals are, and maybe in the beginning, just very sort of high level, very basic in each of these areas. So the first, if you don't know Airtable, the first column is kind of a special column. It's meant to be sort of the unique identifier of a record in that database, right? So for now, I'll just leave it generically as name, but this might be the actual goal. In fact, let's rename it and call it the goal, okay? And then what I'll do is I want to define for each goal what the area is, right? And I'm just using very generic and broad terms. You call this whatever works for you. It was interesting, actually, when I was sharing the project with my client that I did something like this for him. It was specifically about his business and tracking stuff there. But it was interesting to see how he renamed things, just to see like the way it made sense to him as contrasted with, you know, what sort of made sense to me. We're going to do the area, meaning what's the major area? Is it body, mind, spirit, time, people, or money, right? And I want to do this as a single select. And what you can do is you can create options. So I'm going to save this with no options for a second because I'm lazy and I don't like to type. I'm going to take these and Control-C to copy them. I'm going to go in here and click here. And I thought it would be smart enough for me to paste that all in. I guess it's not. Okay. Well, either way, I can still do it sort of selectively this way because I just paste the whole thing in, right? Control-V, Control-Shift left arrow, Control-X just to clip everything that's not going in that choice, right? So it's a little bit of a faster way to get something like this done. And now I'm down to the last one, okay? So you can see how you can very quickly create choices for a drop-down. And if you have the paid account, you have a prettier color palette so that you can choose different colors, right? So for now, in the interest of time, I'm just going to stick with what Airtable assigned. But just know, and then if you want, you can alphabetize this. I'm not going to in this case because I really want to maintain the order. And in Airtable, when I use a single select drop-down format like this, the sorting will go based on the order that the choices appear in, right? So which is really cool because that way I can have it, you know, well, so I can have it sort that way once I've got a bunch of items in here, right? And so over here, the goal might be, you know, work out 3 days a week, right? Let's say that's my goal to start with. So this is going to be body, right? Here the goal might be, let me think, reading and learning 2 hours per day, right? So much stuff that I read tells me that, you know, people who are quote unquote successful, and let's just define successful very broadly as somebody who's accomplishing what they want to, whatever that means, right? But you know, so much stuff that I read that talks about, you know, how quote unquote successful people live, they read a lot, right? That seems to be a common theme. Okay, so body, mind, and while we're at it, we can just kind of go in this order. So let's just say meditate twice per day. Okay, let's add a row. Time, we'll just call it like manage my calendar, right? And here we can add some notes. So I can say, you know, make sure I meet with Matthew once per month at Brent's Deli. Something Matthew and I have kind of developed as a thing, and we invite other people to join us, of course. And we just did that this past Wednesday, and we had a bunch of people coming. All of them, except for 3 of us, backed out at the last minute. We just have a nice dinner, and we get to talk shop or whatever it is, right? And so that actually covers both the time and the people part, right? So that could be one thing. And then if I get into the people, right, I can just kind of list the people I want to make sure I spend time with. Okay, and I would start listing those people here. So this would be the people part. And excuse me, then the money part might be defined in terms, it could be defined a lot of ways. And I want to talk about this for a second, because this is one thing, and you're going to see me kind of talking about this more and more, because I've been, you know, sort of behind the scenes here in the Nerd Cave, you know, doing a lot of writing, pointing towards the kind of content that I'm going to want to be sort of doing. And, you know, one of the sort of themes I have going through my mind is that when we set our financial goals, a lot of us think of what? We think of how much money are we going to make, right? I mean, that's kind of the standard go-to. Anytime I've asked somebody, you know, what are your goals financially, it's almost always expressed immediately in terms of, well, I want to do this amount in gross revenues, right? So you might think to define this in terms of monthly gross revenues, or you might think to define it in terms of your business net income. Net income's a little more subjective. I think most of us will agree it's easier to think in terms of a gross revenue number that we want to shoot for. And then the theory, of course, is if I hit a gross revenue number and manage the expenses well, then I'll increase my profits, right? But I'm starting to think differently about this. I'm starting to sort of think, I guess the best way I can describe it is further down the line than that, so that I'm not just stopping at deciding how much money I want to make. It's more about a cash goal, right? How much money do I want to have in the bank at the end of a period? I don't feel like I hear that kind of dialogue very often when I'm talking with people about financial goals. We talk about how much money we want to make. We rarely talk about how much money we want to keep, right? And that's what really that means is if instead of defining a goal in terms of, you know, I want to do, you know, 10,000 a month or 100,000 a month, whatever it is, defining the goal in terms of I want to have $100,000 in the bank, let's say, at the end of a certain period of time. Now, of course, you have to then reverse engineer that. And in order to get there, we have to know we're going to make so much money. And out of that, after paying all our expenses, we can keep so much money, right? Then we can look at things like Mike Michalowicz's profit first concept, or my own sort of version of that, which comes directly from the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, which talks about how you just take 10% off the top of everything that comes in and stick it away. And that's yours, and it's yours to keep, and nobody gets to touch that money. I don't care whom you owe money to and what for. And then the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, goes on to explain, it's a percentage breakdown of how your money should get allocated. So very similar in concept to profit first, but you know, a different approach to it. But anyway, so just thinking that way, I just wanted to sort of provoke thought on this part in terms of, you know, because the difference is security to me, right? If I start expressing this goal, oops, I don't know how I ended up there in my browser bar, but let's refresh to fix that. That was very weird. If I'm thinking in terms of expressing terms of how much I want in the bank, because I can make a lot of money, but if I spend it all, it's not helping me. It's not going to provide the security that we often think of that making a lot of money is supposed to provide, right? Years ago, I remember when I was a pretty new blogger, I remember writing an article that if I make $1 million and I spend $1,250,000, I'm actually worse off than somebody who's making $100,000 a year and saves 10, right? So, the point is, if we think in terms of how much money we want to keep, how much money we want to put in the bank, I think, for lack of a better way to put it, that's a better way to express a goal in this area. Because again, the more I can accumulate and keep and have in the bank, that's what's going to provide me with the security. It's the security or the comfort that comes with knowing I can pay my bills and I have more than enough in the bank to do it, right? So I can take off for the holidays. I can take some extra time off and really enjoy. And that's what it points back to. It really points back to this people part, right? When I have that financial security, I can afford to take more downtime to spend with my family and loved ones. And to me, that's what it's really all about. I really want to be able to take that time, because if I take the downtime, and I think a lot of people sort of secretly go through this stress, at least from what I've seen and from private conversations I've had with many people over the years, a lot of us put on, especially with social media being what it is and what it's become, we put on this sort of facade that everything is wonderful, right? You don't really see a lot of people going on Facebook and saying, my God, I'm flat broke. I'm probably going to lose my home next month. Right? That's not the sort of stuff we advertise. We make everything seem and look very wonderful because we want to be proud. We don't want to be ashamed. So, and the point is we want that security, and the security provides the comfort. If I'm taking the downtime, even though in the back of my mind I don't really think I can afford to, I'm not really getting the most out of that time with my friends and family and loved ones, because I'm not really focused. I'm not really present, because in the back of my mind, I'm worried about, crap, how am I going to get my bills paid as soon as I get out of this holiday season? I'm going to be really behind the eight ball because I'm so much less focused while I'm trying to spend this downtime, and which sort of has a way of defeating the purpose at that point, right? So I think if we change our focus on the money part to how much money do I want to have in the bank, all of a sudden, I've experienced this personally firsthand, more so this year than ever before, where, I changed my sort of plan around, and I started putting a lot more money away this year. And then when I started doing it and I started getting excited because I would see the funds grow, then the next time I start thinking, oh, I just had a bunch of money come in. I just sold, I just had a bunch of course signups, and, extra money came in. And that often in the past would have triggered a thought of, hey, I want to, go spend it. I want to go enjoy it. I want to treat myself. I deserve this. Now I think twice, and I'm like, there's nothing I really need, right? Anything I would go spend money on would really just be a toy. It would be fun. It would be cool. And it's probably very justifiable to say, I do deserve it. I work very hard, but a friend of mine actually wrote a blog post years ago that I saw that I really liked what she said. The title of her blog post was "Cash Flow is Not a Reward," right? The reward is actually putting that money away and then having the security that comes with it. So I know I kind of harped on this a lot, but I think it's important. And I think if I can encourage even one person out there to change their mindset based on what I'm saying, then the time I've just spent on this will be very much worth it. Debbie is in the live Facebook feed. She says, money I learned from you, Seth, is planning what you want to have when everything else is said and done, aka what you want to keep. And she says, good for you and clients too. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Debbie. So now that we have some ideas of a goal or a set of goals laid out, now how to track it. Right, before we do that, before we get into tracking, first of all, a couple of quick aesthetic things. This hide fields option here in Airtable, it's not the best language to describe everything you can do with this. You can also reorder things here, right? So I might want to just drag this up and you can't reorder that first column. Like I said, that first column is kind of special. And you can also obviously turn these on and off to hide things, right? And you can also click and drag the column that way. But when you have a lot of columns in the table, this is definitely the way to go in order to reorder something, right? So I want to make sure I'm giving you a lot of these little Airtable tips and tricks. Let me delete that. So now what we want to do is we want to create something like a schedule, right? And you're gonna see, we're gonna build this out. And again, the idea is, I'm hoping that what you'll take away from this today is just some thought-provoking concepts and ideas. And what I really hope you'll do is come back to me after today and say, hey, Seth, as a result of that Zoom session you did on Airtable and setting and tracking goals, here's what I've now done with Airtable. Even if it's a totally different, use case for Airtable, obviously I love knowing that I've inspired you to do something that helps and changes your life. And I especially love knowing and seeing firsthand how you've taken what I've shown you and sort of built and evolved it into your world, in a way that's useful. And often that in turn sparks ideas for me. So please, 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 I really mean every word of this. Share with me after the fact anything that you've come up with, in Airtable, especially if you feel it was inspired by what we've gone over today. So I'm going to create an empty table here. We're going to call it schedule. Okay. And we're going to leave the name column alone for a minute. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the notes and attachments columns because I will want them later, but I want them out of the way while I'm sort of building this. Okay. The first thing I want is a date. And we'll do a date-based field, which is here. I don't need a time for this purpose, but as you can see, the options there in case you wanted a time included, for whatever you're setting this for. And the purpose of this is going to be to schedule the things that we're doing to achieve these goals, okay? And so you're going to see there's some really cool stuff we're going to be able to do with this. Now, since some of this is going to be money related, it's going to be things we're doing for clients, let's say. So we're going to include, I want a few columns here. I want activity. And I'm going to not do any kind of formatting in terms of the column type just yet, and you'll see why. So we're going to do an activity, and we're going to do a customer and a job. And right up front, I want to be clear about this. So if what we're scheduling here is, let's use the name now. Let's say it's going to be a workout, right? Can anybody guess who the customer is when you're doing a workout? Anybody in the chat? Anybody want to chime in on the Facebook feed? Who's the customer when you're scheduling? Who said that?
Alexa.
Alexa, perfect. Gold star. The customer is going to be you, right? You're the customer when you're scheduling something because you're doing something for yourself. And that's a concept I've applied in a lot of ways over the years. It's been really helpful. A lot of times, and sometimes I'm frankly surprised at what a revelation this is to some people when I share it, because to me it seems obvious, but that's probably because I've been doing things with this mindset for so long that if I want to schedule a workout, those of you who've seen me go over this kind of stuff in the past, you've seen that I actually have it on my calendar. The same calendar where I schedule appointments with clients, I schedule appointments with myself for things like going to the gym, for example, right? So perfect answer, Alexa. The customer is going to be me, which brings up the next thing. So I want to create an empty table and call it customers. Okay, and the first one is going to be me. Now watch how this works, because now you're about to see the real power of Airtable. What I've done, and Brad says it in the live Facebook feed, Brad nailed it too. He says, you're the customer. Exactly. All right, so in the schedule, what I can now do is I'm going to change the field type now that I've got a table to link it to, and I'm going to choose link to another record. All right, now I tell it the record I'm going to link to comes from customers. And I can choose whether or not I want to allow linking to multiple records. For this purpose, I don't think you would want to. So I'm going to turn that off. And I'm going to hit save. And now I can choose myself from this. Okay? That's how easy it is. So now what we've got is something very dynamic. So I can list more customers here, right? I can put like Parkway Business Solutions. Let's say Matthew hired me to do something. He had a moment of weakness. Okay, and now in the customer database, what I may want is just some contact information, right? Like phone for myself, obviously, I don't need it. But, a phone number, I'll do phone, and an email at the very least. Okay, this one should have said phone. Okay, and then let's reorder these fields. Okay, and I kind of want you to see this because now when I go back here, let me pull myself out of there for a minute. notice when I have a column that's based on a link to another table, first of all, there's always a symbol next to it, next to each column's name that kind of indicates what kind of field it is, right? So that little symbol means it's a link to another record. Plus, you can see there's a plus sign there now, which is another indicator that I can click on that to choose from choices. So you'll see now as I go to choose, it gives me the records that are coming from that table. And if I had the information there right here in this view, it would show me the phone and the email, right? Which is just handy. It's helpful to have that information at close reach. And for when the list starts to get really long, notice I can use a search. So I can say Seth, and it will find me. Or I can say Parkway, and it will find Matthew, right? So I'll go back to me. Okay, and so you can start building out a schedule where you can start logging your activities. Where am I? I just want to go. I have notes just to make sure that I don't sort of miss something here.
This would be a really good way to keep track of your custom bank rules by industry and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted to in the future use them to different companies, you could do so.
Yeah, exactly. And to that end, I can export this to a CSV so that I could actually keep the actual bank rules here as a backup and then download them to a CSV and import them. But did I read correctly that Intuit is making it or has already made it possible to just transfer rules from one client to another? I think that's either there or coming.
It's coming. The key thing I hope they add on is the ability that you can signify like what industry they're in. Because if you are in a single niche, that's great. But if you're a generalist, it becomes more of the CF.
Yep, and I'm looking in the chat. Elena says there's a movement choosing F5 financial independence, kind of close concept that she says that I'm describing. Focusing on the cash you save in the bank. Just going back to that. I'm just looking in the chats and catching up here real quick. Mariette Martinez has joined us. What?
Somebody posted on your Nerd Enterprises. Cool. It uses Excel shortcuts, not Google shortcuts.
Where's that come from?
In Facebook, Nerd Enterprises.
I don't see that.
I'll show you later.
All right, show me later. Anyway, or you're in the group and not the Facebook page?
The group, and I pick on you, so it doesn't matter.
That's why. So, see, now you got me distracted, Matthew. It's funny because people rarely actually comment on the live feed that's in the group. I'm not used to that. Oh, and it's you posting the comments, you dork. Anyway, now I want to start showing you some other cool stuff because I think you get the idea here in terms of where you can go. The activity should also be another, probably single select drop down. Okay, and now we're going to want to get real specific. So let's say I do have, bookkeeping update. Right, and then I'll just use Parkway as the example. I can start typing Parkway without even having to click that plus sign, and it comes right up. So the activity, and what's cool about these things is you can also add choices on the fly, so you don't have to worry about knowing exactly what's going to be in the list of choices here. So I can just create an activity called weekly bookkeeping or something like that. If I could type, that would help. So notice as I type this, and it clearly Airtable recognizes this is in the list, it gives me the option to create a new option named weekly bookkeeping, right? Right, and this is a little bit redundant with what we have over here in the name, but obviously you can see where this can get more dynamic. I can have activities for specific types of workouts if I wanted to. This is completely customizable and entirely up to you. Right, the job would probably come in as a different table. So it might be that Parkway has outsourced working on one of their clients, and so I would list the client as the job, and I would probably create another table for the jobs, right? And then here's how this gets really cool. So the job, let's insert a field to the left, and I want to link to another record from the customers, right? And so the job here might be, client X. The customer is going to be Parkway. So once again, I'm linking from a different table back to the customers. I don't know why that took a minute. The notes is obviously, in terms of how it's useful, obviously I would write notes about what I need to do to do this job. Then I go back to the schedule, right? And over here, I change this to link to a record. All right, and this is going to be from the jobs table. Now I can pick client X. Now watch what else I can do. If I'm going to go the job route, what I could potentially do is change the customer. I'm going to delete the customer field for a minute. I can make this a little bit more efficient. I'm going to do the customer as a lookup. Okay, so we're looking up based on what's in the job. Okay, and I want to grab the customer. That way, as soon as I assign the job, client X, it knows what customer I'm working with. So if I delete this, the customer goes away. And that way I can choose right from here in the job, and I can see who the customer is as I'm choosing the job. So now I choose client X, and it instantly brings up the customer for me. So again, it's very Excel-like in terms of that's kind of works a lot like a VLOOKUP might work, right? Now, what I want to make sure you take away, especially as we get into the final part of the hour, is it took me a long time to really kind of get how to use these blocks with Airtable, okay? Before I get into that, I want to add one more thing to the schedule. For the money-related items in here, where did I have the major area? That was here. I need this duplicated. I'm just going to recreate it here. So insert left. As I'm scheduling things, I definitely want to indicate what the area is that it falls into, right? So I could do a link to another record and just grab it from the goal analysis. That's certainly one way. Right, so this we know is body. Wait, why didn't that work? Oh, because that's why I didn't want to do it. Because when you link to another record, it always has to be based on what's in that first column. So I'm going to actually just duplicate this. Watch this trick. So I'm going to take, because I have one instance of each here, so I'm going to take this whole selection and copy it. I'm going to trick Airtable a little bit. We're going to change this back to a generic text field for a minute. I'm going to paste. It just prompted me that I was pasting more records than I had space for. So it asked me to confirm that I wanted to expand the table. But now watch this. When I have these choices in here, actually it automatically converted it for me. Sometimes what I've done, and it's probably because I took it from the same kind of field over here, what I've done is I've had a list like this in, let's say, Excel or something that I copied and pasted, and it still sees it as raw text. But then if you go to change the field type to a single select, it just updates it and automatically creates one instance of each thing that it sees. So in other words, Airtable is very smart. It's very slick about how to do that stuff. And then for now, I can delete this. And then this is not mine, though. This is money. And I want to put in a field here called, let's just call it estimated revenue. And I have a field type for currency and save. And so let's say I think that the work I'm going to do for Matthew on that client that day is going to be worth, I don't know, $500. Let's just call it
$1 million.
$1 million. Okay. So now we have some kind of data that we can play with a little bit, just so that, again, what I want to leave you with is just I want your gears grinding. I want you to have some thoughts around this and what you can do. So I want to start showing you how to use these blocks. I've learned some really cool stuff in terms of how to use these blocks. I learned it specifically because I had this project that I worked on that I mentioned a few times earlier, inspired what we're creating here. And that's how I learned it. It was just, you know, they say necessity is the mother of invention. And in this case, it's more like necessity is the precipitator for what will force you to learn something that you were too lazy to learn before, right? And a lot of times it's not even about laziness. It's just that having a real live use case to work on something with gives you context, so it makes it easier. And that's really where this comes in. So when I click to add blocks, there's a lot of different little, it's almost like, think of these as little add-on apps that you can use that work with your data in Airtable. So the first thing I want to show you is something called a summary. I think I can search summary. There it is. So summary block, I'm going to add it to the base. And now I have to configure it. So first I have to tell it what table am I grabbing data from. So let's grab from the goal analysis. Okay, there's only one view. I didn't really explain what views are. I'll come back to that in a minute. It can give me a count, like in this case, it sees 6. And by the way, if you need to see what you're looking at to make it a little more clear, you can minimize this, right? And so we're basing this off of the goal analysis because what I really want to do is show one of these blocks for each goal that I have, right? So the goal analysis is where I want to make sure I'm taking this from. I can click my settings here. Goal analysis, there's only one view. I want to do a summary. I want to pick a field. And I want to say the goal and the summary type. So this is where it gets a little tricky because it's looking for, I did something wrong here, I think. Because normally you're supposed to be able to just grab the text. I'm going to cheat and look on my other project real quick and see how I did these. Okay, so this is designed to pull a value. So let's go back here. And we just want to quickly quantify each of these. So I'm going to insert a field to the left. And we'll just call this quantity, just very generically. And let's say this is a number. All right, so this is 3 because we want to work out 3 days a week. This is 2 because it's 2 hours a day. This is 2 because it's twice a day. Let's just say we want to spend an hour a day managing our calendar. That's probably more than we really normally need. And let's say we want to spend 5 hours a week, right? 5 hours per week. You know, with people we care about, hopefully it's actually probably something more than that. And here you figure it's, let's just say we're trying to do a standard work week and say it's 8 hours a day times 5 days, right? So 40 hours per week, right? So now I have some data that I can work with. Let's go back to, and notice you can work with the blocks here this way, right? So I can do a summary. The field is now going to be quantity, okay? And the summary type will do a sum. So it's giving me 53 because it's adding all of that up. So let's do something a little different with this. I'm going to actually delete this block. And I'm going to do something that I know Matthew's going to love. We're going to do a pivot table. Okay, so again, the table is going to be from the goal analysis. We're going to do a grid view. And notice you're getting a preview here already. It's showing you the row grouping, but for the row grouping, I actually want the goal. Okay. The column grouping can be the area. Okay, and then we want to summarize instead of by count by a specific field. And now we want the quantity. And the summary type is a sum. Boom. So now I've got my little pivot table. So when I close this, it's minimized. I can drag this out to resize it. But now I can see kind of how I've laid out, how I want to spend my time in each of these areas, right? So list people I want to make sure I spend time with. That's the people part. I can see I've got 5 hours a week, right? And we can rename this stuff. Instead of calling it pivot table, I can see, summary or time summary, something like that. Okay, so this is, I was going to do the summary, a different kind of block in the form of what's called a summary. But as I was doing it, and this is, I'm almost glad that happened, because you can hear the thought process that I have out loud. It's like I went to do it one way, and then I realized that there's a better approach to this. And by the way, while we're doing this, just in case, let's maximize this full screen, okay, and go into the settings. You can easily pivot this. I can say, you know what? I do want the row grouping to be the area, and I want the column grouping to be the goal. So there's, because there's no right or wrong, and everything else is kind of the same. I just literally flipped it and pivoted on this. And so now I see it a little differently. Again, because we're working with only a certain amount of real estate, personally, I like the other way better. There's a scroll bar here, but to me, this is a little harder to read. So I'm going to switch it back. So the row grouping is going to be the goal. Column grouping is going to be the area. And done. Okay, now I mentioned real quick that now what we can do is we can add another block that kind of tracks how we're actually spending the time, right, towards these goals. So what I might do is another block that's based on the schedule. And I mentioned something called a view earlier. What I can do with Airtable is I can create different views. So I'm in the schedule. The grid view is here, right? I have dates. Let me put in a date here real quick. So the first workout's going to be, let's say, Monday. Okay, and the bookkeeping work I'm going to do, let's say, is also going to be Monday. Okay, and by the way, if I'm adding things, notice to the left, you have this little double arrow to the left of any record. If you click on that, you get this kind of dialogue. Makes it easier sometimes to, to just enter the information, right? So let's do another bookkeeping job. Run reports. Okay, so the area for this is going to be money again, right? Let's say the date is going to be in December. I just want to have something in a different month for a minute. Okay, the activity can be weekly bookkeeping. You can also, again, add new entries on the fly for these. You can even double click the field name above and get into the dialog where you can actually edit the field itself, right? So Airtable is very versatile. I'm going to link to the job. This is going to be for Parkway again. Notice it looked up the customer immediately. And I'm going to say, that he's going to pay me another $500 for this particular job. And of course, I can write notes and explain exactly what I'm doing. I can attach files, so on and so forth, right? So now what I can do is let's add a block. And I think we'll do, actually backing up, let me close the blocks for a minute so we can see what we're doing, because I promised you to talk about the views. So now what I can do with any one of these views, right now we're looking at what's called the grid view. Okay, I can click this ellipsis over here, and I can duplicate this view. And we're going to call this view November 2019. And now we're going to create a filter on it where the date is, there are some generic ones, but here I'm just going to do a custom kind of thing. So we'll say exact date, but not is, but is on or after November 1st. And then I'll add another filter, and date is on or before November 30th. So it's a little manual to get a calendar month like this. But now I've defined a view called November 2019, which will only show me the stuff that I've scheduled in the month of November, right? So now what I can do is I can create a block. And again, we'll do another pivot table. Okay, I'm going to double click this and rename it and call it November 2019 actual. Okay. This time the pivot table, the table we're basing this off of is the schedule. It kind of knew that because that's where I was when I went to create the block. I was also already in the view called November 2019, right? And so look what this is. It kind of built it for me a bit automatically, right? I don't want to summarize by count, though. I want to do a specific field. And I want to do, let me go back into the table. What do I have here? I need something like the quantity. So here we have estimated revenue, but sometimes, like if it's a workout, it might be a quantity that I'm looking at, especially if I want to compare it with the time-based quantity, right? So let's add in an estimated time component. And so you can see how literally, as I'm sort of thinking out loud on this, And I'm almost done. I see the chat. Matthew's warning me that I have 3 minutes left, so I'm going to wrap this up here. But you can see how on the fly you can really build and customize these things. So we're going to give this a time kind of entry, and there's a field type called a duration, which is perfect for this. And of course, you can choose from among different formats, right? So I'm going to say the workout is going to be an hour, right? 1:00, and the bookkeeping update, let's say, is going to be, I'm going to spend 5 hours on that. So 5:00. Now I can do the grouping based on the time. Okay. All right. The summary type is going to be a sum. Okay. Let me just go back through this. I'll enlarge it so I can see what I'm doing. So we're doing the schedule based on the November view. This is November 2019 actual. The row grouping is going to be, I don't want the row grouping to be the time. I want the row grouping to be the activity. Okay. The column grouping is the area, the area of my life that's being sort of addressed, right? And we're going to summarize based on the time and do a sum. So I'll click OK. And now I can minimize that back down. So as I schedule things now, this will just fill in, right, for the month of November. And obviously I can change it to December, and I can carve out another view and just go in and edit the settings, or I can create multiple dashboards. So I can sort of memorialize what everything looked like in November and then create a new dashboard to do December's stuff. So like I've said, hopefully that gets your juices flowing a little bit in terms of things you can do, things you can create. I'll take advantage of the opportunity right quickly here to remind you that if you want help, I am available, and you can use that black coupon code to get some time with me so I can work with you on how to create this stuff and how because again, and I said this in the beginning, I want to make sure I leave you with this thought. As soon as you can learn how to create this kind of stuff and learn on yourself, you can turn around and offer it as a service. That client that I built the scheduling thing for, that I did for him, paid me almost $3,000 to build that for him. And I basically built the thing it was less than a day. So I made $3,000 for what took me less than a day to create, plus some follow-ups and emails back and forth, because he, I obviously was happy to give him that time and opportunity to do that, where he said, hey, can you create something that tells me this? Can you do something that tells me that? And so his thing is chock full of different kinds of blocks that give him high-level information. In his case, we're looking at potential revenue because he's got an installation business. So here's how many working days I have for the month, and here's how many installers I have. Installers times working days equals total productivity days available. And based on that, we calculate his actual revenue based on what he's scheduled, and also his unearned revenue. And that shows up in blocks on the sideline. So at any given time, as he builds this out and schedules people, he has clear visibility into what's going on with his business, how much money he's leaving on the table, what he's got available in terms of filling up people's time. It's really cool. This was his concept. I just built it for him. But I love getting projects like this because it forces me to think, and now it gives me really cool ideas that I can use elsewhere. So hopefully that's a good thought to leave you on. I'm happy to stick around for another couple of minutes, especially if any of you have any questions or thoughts.
Gotta run, Seth. Talk to you later.
Bye, Seth, your volume's off. Your sound isn't coming through. Your voice, sorry. What's that called? Your voice.
All right, that should be better.
Yeah, I just want to let you know since you're finishing up your recording.
Thank you. Yeah, it looks like everybody left
the
anyway.
last 30 seconds or something.
Right.
All right, have a great weekend.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and Connie, real quick, if you're still watching, I just saw your question come in. So if you create a generic project that you want to resell, you'd probably create a shopping cart item in your website, and then when somebody makes the purchase, with Airtable to transfer it, you would have to have them create a, kind of like I described I did with my client. They would have to take an Airtable account, create a workspace, and then add you as a collaborator in their workspace, and then you could move the project over into their workspace, and they become the owner. So Connie, if you want, get with me in a one-on-one. I'll be happy to dig into this so you can, help your clients with this. And I will see you all around on the web.